For most people, cockroaches are just pests. Something you try to avoid, something you try to kill, something that appears in the darkest corners of human environments. But here's what makes them strange. No matter what humans do, cockroaches keep coming back. They survive environments that would destroy most living organisms. Radiation levels that damage DNA, extreme pressure, food scarcity, long periods without oxygen or water, even physical trauma that would instantly kill most insects. And yet, they continue. This raises a disturbing question. Why does a creature like this even exist? Because in nature, nothing is built without purpose. Nothing evolves without pressure. And nothing survives for hundreds of millions of years by accident. So what exactly are cockroaches? A mistake of evolution? Or one of the most optimized survival designs on Earth? To understand this, we need to stop thinking like humans and start thinking like survival systems. Because cockroaches are not designed to be beautiful. They are not designed to be admired. They are designed for one thing only: persistence. And what you are about to see is why scientists consider them one of the most successful survival machines in biological history. Cockroaches are often treated like unwanted intruders in human spaces. But from a biological perspective, they are not newcomers. They are survivors of deep time. To understand what they really are, we need to go back far before human civilization, far before cities, far before agriculture, and even far before many modern animal groups existed. Cockroach-like species have been on Earth for over 300 million years. That means they existed long before dinosaurs dominated the planet. And remarkably, some of their ancient relatives already had body structures very similar to modern cockroaches: flat bodies, fast movement, hard protective exoskeletons, and a survival strategy built around hiding rather than confrontation. This is important because evolution does not preserve unnecessary traits for hundreds of millions of years. If a body design survives that long, it means it works extremely well. Cockroaches are not modern pests. They are one of the oldest, continuously successful insect survival models on Earth. While countless species have gone extinct, their lineage continued almost uninterrupted through mass extinction events, through climate shifts, through planetary changes that wiped out dominant life forms. So what allowed them to persist? The answer begins with environment flexibility. Unlike many specialized species that depend on one specific food source or habitat, cockroaches are generalists. They do not rely on a single ecosystem. They can adapt their diet based on what is available: organic material, decaying matter, plant-based residues, and in extreme conditions, they can survive extended periods without food at all. This adaptability is one of the core reasons for their long survival timeline. But there is another critical factor: reproduction speed. Cockroaches reproduce in a way that allows populations to recover quickly after environmental stress. Even when large numbers are removed from an ecosystem, their population structure allows rapid regeneration under favorable conditions. This is a key evolutionary advantage. Species that recover quickly after disruption tend to survive long-term ecological changes. Now, consider this. Throughout Earth's history, there have been multiple mass extinction events, some caused by volcanic activity, some by asteroid impacts, some by climate shifts over millions of years. Each of these events drastically reduced global biodiversity. But cockroach ancestors survived through many of them, not because they were the strongest, but because they were adaptable, resilient, and low resource dependent. Instead of competing at the top of food chains, they occupied a different ecological role entirely. They survived in the background, inside soil layers, under rocks, inside decaying environments, in hidden micro-ecosystems where larger animals could not dominate. This low-visibility survival strategy is one of the most powerful evolutionary tactics in nature because it reduces exposure to large-scale extinction pressures. In simple terms, if you are not dependent on fragile systems, you are less likely to be destroyed when those systems collapse. Over time, this strategy shaped cockroaches into extremely resilient organisms, not because they evolved to fight threats, but because they evolved to avoid them. And this leads to a misunderstanding humans often have. We assume survival means strength in battle. But in nature, Survival often means stability in chaos. Cockroaches are not built like predators. They are built like escape systems. Their entire evolutionary history is centered around one principle: continue existing under almost any condition. And that is why they still exist today. Not because they are invincible, but because they are extremely difficult to eliminate from an ecosystem once established. They are not the most powerful organisms on Earth, but they are among the most persistent. And in the next chapter, we will break down what actually gives them their famous, almost indestructible reputation at the biological level. Because the truth is far more interesting than the myth. It is not magic. It is design, a very old design, refined over hundreds of millions of years of survival pressure. When people say cockroaches are indestructible, they are not speaking scientifically. No living organism is truly indestructible. But cockroaches come closer to the idea of extreme resilience than most insects on Earth. To understand why, we need to break the myth apart and look at the biology. Not fiction, not exaggeration, but real structural and physiological adaptations. One of the first reasons cockroaches survive so well is their body design. Their outer shell, called an exoskeleton, is made of a tough material called chitin. This acts like a natural armor layer. It is not bulletproof. It is not unbreakable, but it is flexible, shock-absorbing, and lightweight. This combination is important because in nature, rigid armor often breaks under pressure. Flexibility often survives impact. Cockroaches sit in a balance between both. Another key factor is their body shape. Cockroaches are extremely flat compared to many insects. This gives them two survival advantages. First, it allows them to squeeze into extremely narrow spaces, cracks in walls, gaps under floors, hidden microenvironments where predators cannot easily reach them. Second, their flat shape reduces exposed surface area. This makes them harder to catch and harder to physically damage. It is a survival design focused on avoidance rather than confrontation. But one of the most misunderstood traits is their speed and reflex system. Cockroaches have highly sensitive sensory hairs across their body. These hairs detect even the smallest air movement. When a threat approaches, their nervous system reacts almost instantly. The response time is extremely fast compared to many animals of similar size. This is why they often appear to teleport when disturbed. In reality, they are not disappearing. They are reacting faster than human perception can follow. Another important adaptation is their distributed nervous system control. Cockroaches do not rely on a single highly centralized system for survival behavior. Instead, many of their responses are processed locally within their body structure. This allows them to continue basic movement patterns even under severe physical damage. In laboratory observations, even when parts of their body are impaired, they can still show coordinated movement for a period of time. This is not supernatural. It is decentralization, a survival strategy seen in many ancient life forms. Then there is the question people often exaggerate: radiation resistance. Cockroaches are more resistant to radiation than humans, but they are not immune. The reason they handle radiation better is simple biology. Radiation primarily damages cells during division. Cockroaches have slower cell division cycles compared to many mammals. This gives them a relative advantage under certain conditions. However, high levels of radiation still kill them. So again, not indestructible, just more resilient in specific biological contexts. Another overlooked factor is metabolic flexibility. Cockroaches can survive extended periods without food, and in some cases, without water for significant time spans. This is due to their ability to slow down internal processes when resources are scarce. It is not inactivity. It is energy conservation at a biological level. This allows them to wait out unfavorable conditions that would force other organisms to die quickly. When you combine all of these traits, you begin to see a pattern. Cockroaches are not optimized for dominance. They are optimized for endurance, not strength, but persistence, not aggression, but survival under restriction. And that is the key misunderstanding. Humans often interpret survival as power, but in evolutionary biology, survival is often about flexibility under pressure. Cockroaches are one of the most refined examples of that principle. So when people call them indestructible, they are actually describing something else, a system that is extremely difficult to eliminate from environments once it becomes established. Not because it cannot be harmed, but because it can adapt, recover, and persist under conditions that eliminate many other organisms. And now that we understand their physical and biological design, the next question becomes even more interesting. What happens inside their behavior system? How do they actually survive in real environments day to day? That is where the story becomes even more surprising. By now, we understand something important. Cockroaches are not super creatures. They are not invincible. They are simply highly optimized for survival under extreme and unstable conditions. But biology alone does not fully explain their success, because survival is not only about the body, it is also about behavior. And this is where cockroaches become even more interesting. Cockroach behavior is built around one central principle: avoid risk, maximize survival probability, and stay adaptable. They do not behave like coordinated hunters. They do not rely on group leadership. They do not depend on complex social structures. Instead, they operate as independent survival units. Each individual functions on its own. This makes them extremely flexible in changing environments. If one area becomes dangerous, they do not attempt to defend it. They simply leave. If food becomes scarce, they do not rely on long-term planning. They shift behavior immediately based on environmental cues. This is a form of survival logic that prioritizes reaction over strategy. One of the most important behavioral systems they have is rapid escape response. Cockroaches are extremely sensitive to vibration, air movement, and light changes. These signals are processed almost instantly by their sensory system. When a threat is detected, the response is immediate. There is no hesitation, no evaluation delay, just movement. This is why they often appear to vanish in seconds when exposed. It is not intelligence in a human sense. It is a survival reflex refined over millions of years. Another key behavior is nocturnal activity patterns. Cockroaches are mostly active in low-light conditions. This is not random. Dark environments reduce exposure to predators. It also reduces interaction with large organisms, including humans. Over time, this behavior became deeply embedded in their survival cycle. Light becomes a signal for caution. Darkness becomes a safe operating zone. Cockroaches also exhibit a strong aggregation instinct under certain conditions. When environmental conditions become stable and resource availability is high, they tend to cluster in hidden areas. This is not social bonding in a complex sense. It is environmental optimization. Clustering increases survival probability by improving access to moisture retention zones, warmth stability, and hidden shelter spaces. However, they do not form structured societies like ants or bees. There are no queens, no rigid caste systems, no centralized communication network. This simplicity is part of their strength, because complex systems can fail when coordination breaks. Cockroach survival does not depend on coordination at all. Another important aspect is their extreme resource flexibility. Cockroaches are not selective eaters. They can consume a wide range of organic material. This includes decaying matter that many organisms cannot process. This adaptability ensures that even in low-resource environments, they are rarely fully dependent on a single food source. In survival terms, this is called dietary generalism. It is one of the strongest long-term survival traits in evolutionary biology. Perhaps the most misunderstood part of their behavior is this: cockroaches are not trying to survive in a conscious sense. They are simply following deeply embedded biological programming shaped by natural selection. Every generation that failed to adapt did not continue. Every generation that could respond faster did. Over millions of years. This created a system that appears intelligent in survival situations, without requiring intelligence in the human sense. So when we observe cockroaches in modern environments, we are not seeing a modern problem insect. We are seeing an ancient survival framework operating inside a completely new world. Cities, buildings, human environments. These are just new stages where an old survival system continues to function. And that leads to the final question of this documentary. If cockroaches are this effective at survival, what does that actually tell us about evolution itself? And why have they persisted through so many planetary changes? The answer reveals something deeper about how life selects for endurance over time. When we step back and look at cockroaches across deep time, a pattern becomes clear. They are not exceptional because they dominate environments. They are exceptional because they survive changes that eliminate many other life forms. And this brings us to the final idea of this documentary: not mythology, not exaggeration, but evolutionary perspective. Earth has never been stable. Over hundreds of millions of years, the planet has gone through repeated cycles of transformation: ice ages, volcanic activity, atmospheric changes, shifts in ecosystems, and mass extinction events that removed large portions of life on Earth. Many species that once dominated specific eras are no longer here. Not because they were weak, but because their survival strategies were too specialized for changing conditions. Specialization is powerful in stable environments, but fragile in unstable ones. Cockroaches represent the opposite strategy. They are not highly specialized. They are highly adaptable. This means they do not rely on one narrow ecological condition to survive. Instead, they function within broad environmental tolerance ranges. This is one of the key reasons they have persisted for such a long time in Earth's history. Another critical factor is ecological flexibility. Cockroaches are not dependent on a single role in the food chain. They are not apex predators. They are not strict herbivores. They are not locked into a single feeding niche. Instead, they function as general recyclers within ecosystems. This allows them to persist in many different environments without requiring specific ecological balance. But perhaps the most important concept in evolutionary biology is this: survival is not about strength in the present moment. It is about adaptability across future uncertainty. Cockroaches represent this principle at an extreme level. They are not designed for peak performance. They are designed for continuity. This is why they have remained relatively stable in form for millions of years. While many species evolve rapidly to specialize, cockroaches change slowly because their existing design already works across a wide range of conditions. In evolutionary terms, this is called functional stability. When a system already performs well across many environments, there is less pressure for radical change. And this leads to an important realization. Cockroaches are not winning evolution in a dramatic sense. They are simply not losing. They persist through cycles of environmental change by maintaining flexibility rather than specialization. So when people describe them as indestructible, what they are really reacting to is not physical invincibility, but statistical survival probability over long time scales. In short, they are difficult to eliminate from Earth's ecological system once established. Now, zooming out, this raises a broader reflection about life itself. Most species on Earth are not optimized for permanence. They are optimized for balance within specific environments. When those environments change, some species adapt, some migrate, some decline, and some disappear. Cockroaches sit in a category that prioritizes persistence through change rather than dominance with instability. They are not the most complex organisms. They are not the most intelligent. They are not the most powerful, but they are among the most resilient. And that is why they continue to exist in human environments today. Cities are not a challenge they evolved for, but they are flexible enough to adapt to them. Walls become shelters. Buildings become ecosystems. Human activity becomes another environmental condition they learn to navigate. So what does all of this actually tell us? It tells us something important about evolution. Nature does not design for perfection. It designs for survival under uncertainty. And different species achieve that in different ways. Some through intelligence, some through strength, some through cooperation, and some through extreme adaptability. Cockroaches represent one of the most enduring examples of that last strategy, not because they are superior, but because they are flexible enough to persist when conditions change. So the next time you see one, you are not looking at a symbol of failure or dirt. You are looking at a biological system that has already survived multiple eras of planetary change, a system that does not depend on stability, but survives because instability is normal in its evolutionary history. And that is the final insight of this documentary. Cockroaches are not the future of dominance. They are the result of one of nature's most consistent survival strategies: adapt, persist, and continue regardless of change. If you found this documentary insightful, make sure to subscribe to Nature Declassified and turn on the bell icon, because we uncover the hidden systems behind nature in every single video. And if you enjoyed this episode, share it with someone who still thinks nature is simple.